Okay, so let's start the lecture. I'm starting 15 minutes late for the feedback part. See, today we would be looking into we will be looking into the anatomy of a C program, the basic anatomy, what goes inside a C program. I'll be explaining you the very basic things that every C program has to have if you want to write a C program. For it's I mean it might be very familiar things for people who are still programming or who have done programming before, but I'm addressing those people who are completely new to programming, and it's a very essential discussion because everything will be built on top of today's discussion, like how a C program looks like. So before that, okay, okay, I will just show you to the terminal. So this is my program here. That's my program, C program. So today we will be just looking into the structure, the syntax, and what all goes in running a basic program. So in the last two lectures, what we were dealing with is we were dealing with the hardware view of the our system, the programmer's view of the same hardware, and then we had an execution model. And in lecture two, what we did was we dived deeper into the same things, as in we looked into the hardware in more details, and later on. What we looked was how a program is picked up from memory from your hard disk and how it goes through this compilation and steps, and then how it is finally executed on your memory by those all those that program counter pointing to it in the memory. So those things are done. So today we will be looking at how you write your programs. How do you start writing your programs? What's the basic like format, or what's the basic things that go in a C program? So before that, let me just validate what I was speaking in the last two lectures. I'll just show you something. Wait. Yes. So if you see this, if you see this, so this is what, just look at the red, just look at the red numbers here. That is, just look at this part. Don't look at the text section of it. Just look at the numerical section. That is the things in the red. So the same program, this one line program which I just showed you, sorry, this one line program, right? This one line program goes through all those steps which I discussed in the last previous class of compilation, then linking, and then loading. This is these numbers, right? These numbers are what goes in your CPU, and this is what the CPU sees your program as. These numbers 2F, 6C, 696, 2D, 78, and these numbers on the left, these are the locations where they are located. These are the things, these are the addresses of these numbers in memory. This is where the program counter points to. For example, if your program counter wants to start this program, this whatever I have, right? So it has to start reading the address, locate address from this number 400238. What is located at 400238? 2F. So that is the number representing the instruction at instruction 2F. Why is it in this form ABC? So these are hexadecimal numbers actually. This actually translates to a binary number. I mean, yeah, but then the computer stores your numbers as hex numbers, and your computer later on takes the hex and converts it to binary and then performs the operation. So the point of me showing this is I just want to show you all that your CPU understands is this column in between, the middle column, all these numbers. This is what your program is, and the things on the right are just for your reference, as in this is the assembly code of the same program. But the programmer doesn't sorry, the CPU doesn't understand this assembly code. The CPU will just see this number. So I have used an utility which will just take your executable, and then it will print out all the sequence of numbers which represents that executable which the CPU would see, and and put the number sequence corresponding to the assembly level instruction that matches that number sequence. So if you see this, right, so these number sequence match this instruction, but the CPU will not see it. This is just for your reference. The CPU will only see the middle column. Any questions here, guys? I just wanted to show you this because I want to validate what I was speaking in the last lecture, that your executable is just a sequence of numbers. Yeah.
Does the program counter keep track of all the addresses?
No,
Like,
not all the addresses. Program counter just has to point to the next address. No, why would it keep track of all the
nah,
addresses?
because it shows all the addresses as you showed in the first column.
Yeah, so see, the program counter is just like a value in the CPU, right? Which will say what's the current instruction that has to be executed. So if it is at, let's say, 4002238
Hmm.
in one iteration on the fetch decode execute, and the next iteration it would be at 4000241. That's it. Why does it have to keep track of how many instructions, how many addresses has it seen before? It doesn't have to. It just have to know where to go next. That's all.
Okay.
Sir, I wanted to ask, are these addresses in RAM?
These addresses, what do you mean by in RAM? These are not. They're not
Referring to,
located.
sir, RAM or storage means
These
the
are
hard.
RAM addresses. These are
Okay.
these are your
Yes, sir.
this one, that memory model we had, right? So these are the
Yes, yes.
addresses. Yes.
Okay, yes, sir.
These are the shelf locations.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So just keep this picture in mind, guys. So this is what it means. Your program is just a sequence of numbers, your executables, and this is what your CPU sees. That's all. So that means whatever. Yeah. Am I getting some chats? Yeah, that's what I told you. Now these you don't, these things will not be binary, but then when you feed it to a circuit, right, when you feed a number to a circuit, then automatically the circuit will can convert this into binary, right? So this number, let's say 2f, what does 2f means in binary? Let's say 2f means, let's say something, let's say 40 or 50. So then when you feed the number 40 to the CPU, then the CPU will automatically extract the bits out of that. I mean, it will convert it to a binary. And there is a logic inside the CPU which will take the number and convert it to binary. So that's not an issue. It can do that, but it cannot convert a text. Now, if you would have just, let's say, instead of 6C, if you had just sent INSB, then there is no way now you can change the text to something, right? Because a text is not a number. You can always change a number to binary. You cannot change a text to a binary form. Why do you have the zor? Don't worry about the logic here. I mean, don't worry about the instructions there. That's not the point. I mean, I cannot explain you everything what is going on here, because this is just a single line program, and that got compiled, or that got compiled into this big chunk of assembly code. So don't look into the logic of the code. Just look at the numbers. That's my point. Jay, you got it right? Yes, you got it. Good. So if you have any questions, Jay, you can ask me privately. I'll answer it here. Okay, good. So then okay, if this point is clear, so this is what I was showing to you. So this is a one line program, frozen.c. And then this one line program has that whole assembly, or that whole sequence of number representation, which goes to a CPU. So just appreciate the fact that even a one line program gets translated to such a big sequence of assembly instructions, or such a big sequence of numbers. So who is doing this for you? So this entire conversion, right, from a one line program to your executable or a sequence of numbers is done by those steps of compilation and linking. Basically, these are the two steps, because the final step is just loading. Okay, I think I have made that point clear. Good. So now let's at the start. Let's look at the syntax of a program. Like, not syntax as in what all things go inside a C program. Let's start with line number 1. So if you look at line number 1, so you see an include stdio.h. So I think, 100% of the time you will be using this header. So these are called macro definitions. I didn't explain the pre-processing part in the last lecture. Today I will do that. So these are called macro definitions. So what do you mean by macro definitions? See, inside main, right? Inside main, I have used the function. What do I mean by function here? Function is simply a block of code which does something. That's it. It's a block of code, or it's a sequence of code which does some functions for you. What does this printf function do? So for today's context, just remember function is a block of code. So this function printf, what does it do is it will just whatever things I am typing inside, right? Again, someone has gone off mute. Who is that? Anurag. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, yeah. So printf is this function block of code which will do something for you. What is that something which the printf is doing? It is just whatever you are typing between these quotes, right? These quotes. So this particular line gets displayed on your monitor, or gets displayed on your terminal. That's what the printf function or the printf block of code does. So if I run this code, I will explain it to the compilation part. So if I run this code, I see, yeah, sorry, I have misspelled something here. It should not be slow. It should be snow. Good. Yes. So you see this, right? This line comes up. So who is printing this line? So see, your terminal is an output device, right? I mean, this is where your terminal is on monitor, and the monitor is what it is displaying something for you. So that display part, this is what the printf function does for you, right? So yeah, so this is doing that for you. But if you would have observed, I have not declared, I have not written anything about printf anywhere in my program. I have just used printf. So printf is not there. You cannot see any logic saying what is actually printf, what is the logic, what is the block of code that represents printf. It's not there. It's not part of the program. Why is it not part of the program? Is because printf is provided to me by this header called stdi.h. So just think of these headers as they contain all those they contains these extra modules that you want, these extra blocks of codes which you want to do some of the operations in your program. See, because whenever you learn a programming language, right? So that programming language would provide you with some blocks or some functions which are already which are part of the programming language. For example, subprogramming language lets you talk over the network, right? And then some programming language does something else for you. So these functions are part of the language, right? These functions are part of the language, and you can just use these functions inside your program. You can just pick the functions, you can write the function and then use it. That's all. You don't have to write the logic for the function, because if you would have, if there was no such functionality in a programming language, just imagine how big a code you have to write always, because this is a pretty basic task, right? The printf is a basic task that will always end up doing. So remember, if the so yeah, so just think, if C did not give you this functionality of printing something to your terminal, then what would have happened? You would have, every time you use printf, you would have to define printf yourself and then make it work, right? And put it and display things on the terminal. So that would have been a nightmare for you. So that's why, to make your life simpler, C gives you the programming language gives you some functions, pre-built functions, you could say, which are already there for you. It's like a catalog of functions which are already ready for you, ready-made functions. And these ready-made functions are defined inside this header. So because I am using printf, I have to declare that header where the printf is there, whose part is the printf function or the printf block of code. This is what this first line is doing. Another analogy is, you could say these header files are like pre-built functions, and if you want to use any of the pre-built functions, you have to include that header in your file. So that's why this line says include stdioh, because stdioh contains the function printf, or contains the block of code called printf, which will do the printing for you. Sorry. And stdio stands for standard input output. This particular header file, right? It stands for input output. Is this point clear?
So, does this stdio.h and other things depend on the ID? Like in Turbo C++, we had to type stdio.h, and when I was using Genie, we had to use hash include IOStream.
What were you using?
Genie,
What's Genie?
that's another ID. I don't know how
But
to
the name is
explain.
pretty embarrassing. Anyways,
Uh,
whatever. So
okay.
see, STDIO stands for standard input output. What you were mentioning is IO stream, right? So
Yes,
IO
sir.
stream is a C++ header. It's a C++ header IO stream. So
Yes, but
I can also include IOS include. Let me show this since this question came up. See, I don't want to go off topic today, guys, because I will be, yeah, some people would be angry on me if I go off topic again. See, I'll show you. Okay. See, when I typed IOStream, what is the error that I got? That there is no header of this name, right?
yes, sir.
Right. So let me just do one thing. Let me just change frozen to frozen.cpp. Now I have changed my C part to CPP part. So if it doesn't work, I'll be embarrassed. It doesn't work. Sorry. Okay.
Sir, I guess frozen. Sorry, I guess IO stream. matlab, there is no dot h. There is only IO stream.
Yeah, I get it, but then there was an IO stream also, .h as in the previous versions. Yeah, you're correct. Good. So what happened here is I have also included that same header that you were mentioning, but then that it doesn't contain printf. So that header contains something called cout. This block of code, that cout, right? This thing. This also
Yes, sir.
does the same thing like printf, but this is located inside this header, IOStream header. So
So
that's
my doubt is, my teacher used to say if we used the embarrassing ID, we had to write just IOStream. But if we use
no,
Turbo C++, we had to write IOStream.h. So like, does header files name vary in different
no, it
IDs?
doesn't. See, the latest see, this is a C++ header actually. This particular thing, right? So let me just, if I change back to, let's say, uh, if I change my file to C, let's see if it compiles or not. I think it will compile. It should not. Yeah. See, that's the thing. So when I type this, right? Yeah, yeah. So when I have used a C, now I will come to what is an extension. See, your program has extensions. So what is the present extension of C? Tell me. Sorry, what is the present extension of this file frozen? It's .c, right?
Dot C. Yes, sir.
So what are the what do you mean by extension? When you have a text file, what is the extension? Reply fast, guys.
Dot
TXT.
txt.
Whether it's or
TXT.
not. Yeah, good. .txt. Similar things. Similarly, your program files also should have an extension. If it doesn't have an extension, let's see what happens. So if it doesn't have an extension, let me remove the extension from frozen. Let me just keep it as frozen dot. Let's see what happens. And I've just kept some random this thing. So it just does not work. It will just say not recognized format. Because for your compilation to happen, so this is your compiler, right? I showed you last time. This is your compiler that you are invoking. So your compiler, to pick up the file and compile, it has to have that certain name. Just like your software, your notepad doesn't understand if you provide it with a mp3 file, right? Similar thing.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
Your GCC will not understand if you provide it a file with a different random extension. Yeah.
sir.
Thank you,
Um,
sir.
I was reading a Linux book, and there it said that there are no file extensions in Linux.
No, for see, Yeah, again, let's not digress, man. Otherwise, you will be the culprit here. I don't want to take the brunt of you guys.
Also a smaller doubt, sir. Also in C++, I was reading that a little bit too. It said that CPP file extension is not required. Could you possibly, I don't know, show that? I guess. Um,
Yeah, see, yeah, I'll come to that. I will explain it to you separately, maybe after the class. I mean, you just hang on. I will explain what do they mean by not having extensions, Linux systems.
okay.
But from a compiler's perspective, you have to have an extension because otherwise the compiler won't comply with you.
Okay, sir.
It will be very, very like it just does not work without an extension.
Okay.
So now what I
Sir,
did, if I,
what
yeah,
language have you written the code in Zip?
it's a C language, C.
Sir, but cout is not in C, na, sir.
Exactly, that's not in C. That's what I was trying to show you guys. So if I try to compile, right, so then that's what I see as an error because this header is not part of
Sir,
this.
but when you are compiling that in C++, it's able to compile. Is it able to compile?
Yeah, it's able to compile. I have showed that already now. So let me do, if I do this frozen.c and if I change the extension now. Sorry, if I change the extension now, so now I can compile. This is the C++ compiler. G++ is the C++ compiler. So it compiles right nicely.
So printf, which is a C command, can also be compiled in C++.
Yeah, because I told you now C++ is the bigger brother of C. Whatever is there in C, it's in C++ also. But whatever is in C++, it's not there in C. So just remember this. That's why when I have the CPP extension, both printf and scout works. But if I have the C extension, only printf works because that is part of the C, not C++. Subset, yeah. Obviously subset. Is this point clear, guys? About header files. So header files are those files which allow you to pull in functions which are already part of the language, which you can nicely use in your programs. If you don't include the header files, you will not have the luxury of those functions that the language provides you with. There is some other functions called scanf. Then there is some other functions like math functions, which does your logarithms, maybe power. So all these functions are located in the respective header files. So if you want to use a specific function, you just have to put the name of the header file in the include.
Sir, why is it so that here IOStream works instead of IOStream.h?
This is a new C++ way of doing it actually. In the older C++ compiler, so they have to give a .h actually. But now, since it's a very recent C++ compiler, right? So now you don't need the .h. You just say h. So you just say the name of that header file. It's a C++.
So can we use stdio instead of stdio.h?
I think with CPP you can use, yeah, but with C you cannot. So I'm not doing CPP today, right? So let's delete IOStream now. Yeah, so let's stick to C only. So for you guys, you always put a .h as an header file extension, because within CPP in C it won't work without an extension. I think so. If it works, then it's fine. But I think for most of the cases it won't work.
Sir,
Okay, so let's me change
Sir.
back to .c. Yeah.
sir, is there any kind of header which includes all the kind of functions?
Why do you want that, man? Why do you want such a big header?
No, so we don't have to include different headers.
No,
like for particularly maths, you have to use another function, another header. So
I know, but then C has already made life simple for you, and you want it to be much more simpler, is it? You don't want to remember header files. It doesn't work that way. You have to remember at least 6 or 7 header files, basic header files, which you have to include.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no single header file. I mean, it's not a good idea also to have a single header file, because that would be a pretty big file, something like that. Yeah. So they have divided this into other small header files, and then they have the functions inside them. Now I've explained the header file concept, right? So header files are for when you want to use functions which are part of the language, and which you have not written per se. You have not written personally. Okay, so now I'll come to the preprocessor. Now what happens? What is called a preprocessor? So as the name suggests, preprocessor means something that happens before compilation. Just remember this: preprocessing means something that happens before your compiler starts compiling the program. That's the preprocessing. So in this case, what happens in a preprocessor? What does the preprocessor do is, yeah. So preprocessor will take the header file, and it will expand the header file. It will put the locations. See, this function printf, right? This function printf has a code blocks, right? It has a block of code associated with it, right? Otherwise, if it doesn't have a block of code, it will not work. So what the pre-processing step will do is it will just pick up whatever name you have given as the header file name, and it will put the locations of the code of all the functions that is located on a hard disk. Example, it will say, okay, where is this function? What is the code for the function printf located on the hard disk? If you have other, and then similarly it will expand the location of all the functions that are there, or all the code blocks that are part of the header. So if you don't trust me, I will show you what it looks like. So this is if I type cc, right? So this will do the pre-processing for you. See, when I did this part, when I did this thing here, so I have invoked again, I have invoked a tool, or I've invoked a software which is called the preprocessor. So here I'm not doing the compilation. Just remember this. I am just taking your I'm taking your file and then asking the preprocessor to pre-process this file. Now this is the pre-processed file, the frozen.i, right? This is the pre-processed file. So this operator here, what I did here is I just took the output of this and then I just stored it in this file. That's it. That's what I use this. It's a Linux redirection operator.
Sir, have you overridden it?
No, I have put a new extension. Now just see this frozen.i now. So now this is a new file. This is separate from the .c file. Now if I open this, remember when in the last lecture I was showing you that how the files get modified as you go to other stages in your process of putting a program into memory. Remember that? So now this is oh, what the hell happened? Okay. This is strange. Wait, let me figure it out. Guys, give me a moment here. I'm just figuring out something. So wait. Yes. Sorry, I'm extremely sorry. I have used a different. Actually, the preprocessor command is CPP, not CC. It's CPP. I have, yeah. So now I will get the proper output. Yeah. See, this is your program after it has gotten pre-processed. So now, if you just come down here, if you just see this is what you wrote, right? This is what your program looked like. Int main. You didn't have all these extra lines above main. There was nothing above main except the header file. Now what the pre-processing did was it just took that header file and expanded all the functions that are located inside. See, these are all the locations of the functions that are there in the header file and the locations of those functions, as in the location of the code for those functions. For example, this is a location for something called word size.h. So it will just point in where in the hard disk is the code for that function located. So these are all locations, right? User include, these are all locations, all locations. So I think if you search printf, you would be able to find it somewhere also. Yeah. So now just look at this. After the pre-processing part, your file still does not contain the code for printf. Just remember that. It just contains a stub, you could say. It just says, okay, this is how printf looks like, and if you want to see what is the code for printf, go look at that location. For example, this is where your actual printf would be located, maybe in user include studio directory. This is the path of that where the printf code will be located. So then what your I spoke about the compilation from the linking perspective also, right? So at the very end, when you are done with your object code generation, then you have to link all the programs, sorry, link all the object files. So this is what happens. So when you have the locations of the external functions that you are using, which are part of the header, so then at the very end, these extra functions which you are using, they will also get compiled, and the code for those functions will be linked to your main code, that is whatever you wrote, as a part of the linking process, and finally your executable will be ready. So the location is just for getting to the location of printf on the hard disk, compiling it, getting the object file for printf, and then finally linking it with your program, which is just this one line of code in this case.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, would the code for printf be in binary at that location?
No, I think printf would be, I think it will be in text format, and I think it gets compiled, as in it gets compiled together with your code also, and then it gets linked at the very end to create the assembly. And what do I mean by, sorry, to create the object file, and what do I mean by object file again? That big sequence of numbers.
Okay, sir.
So just the takeaway from this point is, so just remember that your preprocessor has expanded your file, your C program, using the header files, and it has listed out all the functions that are part of the header file, and just listed them out. By the way, there is no code of those functions located in this preprocessed file. The code will be located somewhere else, which the compiler will pick up during the compilation, and then compile it together with your program and link the object codes later on. Okay, so that's the pre-processing part. Is it clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this particular format, this particular file is what goes to your compiler now after the pre-processing. And the compiler now will start compiling your code as well as maybe the other functions that you have invoked through the header files. So header file is just like you could say like a register of functions, right? It maintains, okay, within this header file, these are the functions, these are the locations of those functions. Whenever you invoke these functions in your program, go there, pick up the code, compile it, create object code, and link to a program. Okay, so that's the first, we are still in the first line. Yeah, so that's the first line, that's done. So the pre-processing does expand this and create all the extra lines here. So now if you come back here, you see there is nothing here, right? After the pre-processing, all the locations get expanded here. Good. So let's come to this now, this line. What's int main? So the pre-processing part is clear, guys, right? Any questions here?
No, sir.
Understood.
Good. I mean, understood as in all of you should understand this, not only people who already know programming. I'm asking the people who are very new to programming.
Like hashtag include, why should we write it, sir?
Don't call it hashtag. It's bad. Call it hash. It's not a Twitter. Yeah. So why do you need a hash? So you need a hash because hash is a way of telling your preprocessor that this is the header file. If you didn't have a hash, right, how would your preprocessor know if this is a header file or if it is just like some other line in your program? So this hash is just allowing your preprocessor to pick up the file. That's all. So it's a syntax issue. That's all. So whatever you include, whatever you put after the hash, right? So these are all the pre-processing directives. These are called the pre-processing. Include is one of the pre-processing directives. So these will be processed by your preprocessors. Preprocessor is not going to process your main or these lines. Preprocessor is only going to process your things that you have written after the hash. Is that clear? Whoever was asking this question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So the pre-processing thing, I could not understand it. Like it merges the header file with our main, with our own program,
Yes.
but it does not contain the code. So then, what is the use? They can just as easily have included it from the original header file.
You mean they could have just included what? The code, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, like, if even after the pre-processing, they have to go back to the header file, they could have just done that in the first place. What is the need for pre-processing?
Okay, so suggest me an alternative now. If you don't want to use a pre-processing, then what do you want to put here instead of that? How do you get access to printf, the code for printf?
Yes, like we have included the header file,
Yeah.
and now when we compile directly, the program will see, okay, I'll go to stdio.h, and then I will copy everything from there. But
Yes.
so then, what is the need of pre-processing? Like,
Okay, the need of pre-processing is the compiler is it is like two different tasks. Now compiler is doing what? It will take up the different source files, compile it, right? But this is a clearly differentiated task. The task of the preprocessor is, you were asking what is the significance of the preprocessor, right?
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah. So the task of the preprocessor is, okay, this is the header file, and these are the functions located inside the header file, and these are the locations of those functions. So the preprocessor will just list them out in your program, in your modified program, and then pass it to the compiler. So these are two different tasks. There is no one stopping the compiler also to do the same thing. The compiler could have just started with this and then later and done the compilation after that. But then we wanted to have this clear differentiation, right, of the steps. So that's why we have a preprocessor, and then following that we have a compiler.
Sir.
Wait, did I answer your question?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yes.
So the compiler compiles all the functions that are written in there, or just the main function and the function it calls?
The compiler only compiles the functions that you are calling.
Okay.
Why will it compile everything?
Yeah, so that was my doubt. Okay, sir.
Yeah. So you could say it's done in on demand basis. So whatever functions from the header you are using, right, those header through the preprocessed file, you will go to those locations, compile those header files, compile the functions, get their object code and link it to your program.
Okay, sir.
Only those functions, not everything. If you do everything, if you compile for everything in the header, it will be a really slow process of compilation, right?
So what about the functions that we write? For example, I write a function.
Oh, then those functions, the code for those functions are already part of your program, na?
Yes, sir.
So your compiler already knows what is there in the code for those functions. So yeah, so it's happy. Okay, good. So let's go to the second line here. So what is the second line here? The second line is that your program has to have an entry point. What do you mean by entry point? Entry point is that, suppose you want to do a task, right? You want to do something in let's say you want to achieve a certain goal. So what you would do is you would write the steps towards achieving that goal, right, somewhere. So that place where you wrote those steps, that is acting like, so if you want to do these tasks or if you want to achieve that goal, you have to go to that file where you have written down all the steps, and then you have to start executing that one after another. Maybe each step will lead you to a different function or a different program, but at least you have to have a master thing, right? If you have a master file wherein from where you have to start with. If you don't have that starting point, then you cannot start your program. So that is what the function main does for you. So this is the necessity of every program. Every program should have a main function. So let me just do one thing. Instead of not putting a main, so let me just put any random function here. Let's say void what do I say? Give me a name, guys, quickly.
First.
Yeah. So let's say now I have removed the main. Now I am just putting a function, that's function name here instead of the main. So let me compile this function program. Now what happens? So if you see this, I get a very ugly error saying there is nothing to start your program from, because it does not have a master point now to start. Undefined reference to main. So that's the necessity of main. Main is the starting point from where your program starts execution. All the other functions or the other things that you refer to your program, that is like a branch off from main. You will go to that function, but again you have to come back to that place only. So you could think of main as that master place wherein all the tasks are located. You execute a task and come back to main and execute the next task. Again, do that thing, come back to main. Just like your list, right, which had all the tasks to achieve that goal. You execute a task, do that, come back to the list. Go again, execute the next task, again come back to the list. So main is like that starting point. Without main, your program won't run.
So what is the difference between void main and int main?
I will see. Yeah. So void is just like when you want to return something from your program, you just use int. If you don't want to return anything, you just say void. But yeah, we will do functions at at a much deeper and a it's much more depth later on in the course. So let me just, for now, just think of it as it's returning something here. So that's what that main function does for you. So all your other things have to go inside main. That's all. That's it.
Sir,
Yeah.
so this int main function is the only function which is executed.
Yes, only function that is executed now. But now if you have something else inside this main, right, some other lines also. So all these lines will be executed one after another inside the main. So these lines could be simple statements or they could be references to some other functions as well.
The functions outside the code.
Yes, if they're in the header file, just like printf, it could be there. It could be that case as well. But then there could be functions that are part of your program, right? For example, this could be part of your program. So you could execute those functions also here. But then main is the starting place where every time you execute something, you have to come back to main and resume the execution. So it's like, yeah, I'm not finding a better analogy for this, but just think of it as like the master list, which contains the information about all the other tasks that your program has to execute.
So suppose we use int main and don't write return 0. Will anything happen?
Let's do that now. What's stopping us from doing this right now? Nothing would happen. You will just see a warning saying you are supposed to return something, but you didn't return anything. That's all. Sorry, you are not supposed to return anything, but you returned something. That's a warning. If I say int and I don't return, then it would say you are supposed to return something, but you didn't return anything. So it's
So
not
what
an
is the
issue.
meaning of returning?
Yeah. So
Bro,
I'll
once
come to
remove the return statement and type in void and show us what's going to happen.
nothing is going to happen. It will be fine. I think let's see if you get some warning. There will be no error. You could get a warning. That's all. Yeah, there's no error. There's nothing actually. It's a clean compilation. You don't see anything, right? Why? Because you just said void means nothing. Main will not return anything, and you have not returned anything, so it's fine.
So, bro, sorry, sir. Is main the part of function? Main the part of syntax of C?
Main
Is it a special line?
It's a special function which you have to write in every C program. So that's the function from where your execution starts. Otherwise, let's say if you have written 100 functions in your program and you have written a really clever program of, let's say, which spans across 100 different functions, and you start your program execution, then you have to say, right, which function is the starting point. So that function is called main. You have to have a starting point of execution. No? Otherwise, how would you know in what order are you going to invoke all those functions?
So we cannot name any other function with the name main.
No, because your execution starts by seeing that name main, and then your execution starts.
Sir, so what is the actual use of void function then?
Don't go deep into that. See, void is something. Yeah, it will come into play when you actually go into function definitions and function writing. But now you are not worried about functions, right? So that's not worry about void now. Void and intent is when you use void, your function does not return anything. When you use something else, your function has to return something. And by return, I mean whenever you execute a function, right? But let's say you did a task in that whole goal thing. I mean, you have a list and you did some task. You will have some output from the task, right? And then you take that output and then you get that output and come back to your list. So that output is the return part of the function. You get something out from the function and then maybe you take that and give it to the other tasks that are there in your list, master list. So this is what the return part of a function does. It gives you something as output from the function.
So what is the point in writing a program when it doesn't return anything? Like, Like,
Yeah, so see, in this case, there's a point, right? I could clearly print this on the terminal. Now I did that, right? Return is not
okay.
a return is not a part of the function logic. What all that I wanted to do in my function was, let me keep it as void only, not to confuse you guys. So what I did was all that I ever wanted from the function is a clear compilation, and then after that I should be able to just run it. That's it. Now I have achieved what I wanted to do in the function. Why do I need a return?
Okay.
Okay, fine. So so main is clear, right? The concepts on main.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So in some languages, I mean like Python, the program flow goes from top to bottom. So in C++, it's not like that. Does it directly go to main? That's what it does. That's what you're telling us.
Yeah, it goes to main and then it looks whatever things are inside the main, and then it selectively like it's not selectively as in whatever things you have written inside the main, it starts compiling them.
So the flow need not necessarily be top to bottom. I mean, it'll directly go to main first.
Yes, you could say, yeah, it will go to the instructions of the main.
Okay, sir.
See,
Even if
main
something's
is
written before that.
Sorry?
Even if something's written before that.
See, ultimately, whatever you have written in your code, that has to be compiled, right?
Yes, sir.
So how will it compile? First, it will go to the your starting entry, so your starting point, your master list, that is main, and then it will see what are things that are inside the main, and then if there is some function which is outside the scope of your code, that is you have used some header file, then it will pick up the source code for the header file, compile it, and come back to them and then link it. So this is how it. I mean, let's not go into how the compile in what order it happens, but just imagine whatever you have written that has to be get compiled, and in some order they all have to be linked to a single executable.
Okay, sir.
So yeah, so yeah. I had one thing in mind which I'm forgetting. Yeah, so I have explained you the pre-processing part, and yeah, and compiler, you know, right? Compiling part. So compiling is what will create that pre-processed file and then create that list of numbers which I showed you at the beginning of the class. And what does the linker do? Can someone respond directly? What does the linker do now? I mean, I want someone who was new to programming and who understood what a linker does.
It combines the object files.
Yeah, it binds the object file. Na? That's what
Sir, it combines different assembly files into one executable file.
Exactly. So in this case, the printf, right? The printf is one such function which is outside your source file, right? And then it will create that object and link it to your program, link it to your main executable file. So that's the linker part.
So linker adds those extra lines other than our code, right?
Exactly. You got it.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Good. Yeah, you made more sense than me. Good. To compile and link the program. So this is done. This is clear. How do you compile your program? You just say gcc pun.c and then it compiles. Yeah. So one important thing that I had to mention was, so last time I showed you a lot of steps, right? There's a pre-processing step, then there is a assembling step which calls the assembler to create the object code, and there is a linking step, and finally a loading step. But when I just did gcc frozen.c, I got, what did I get? I got an executable, right? What is the executable's name? Yeah, another important thing. Yeah. So whenever I do a compilation, always, let's say I remove this first, let me remove the a.out. Yeah. So whenever I compile a file, see right now I've just compiled it, and then if I do an ls, I see an executable called a.out. So this is the default name of your exe in case of a C program. If you don't give it a name, it just compiles it to a default name which is called a.out. Now if you want to run this a.out, just do this .\a.out. Just like you see, this thing here is just equivalent to double clicking your exe on the hard disk. That's all. So now if you just enter, the program executes. So this is the default name of your exe. But now let's say you want to give it a suitable name of your choice. All that you have to do is just say .o, and let's just say, yeah. So now if you just do an ls here, now you would see a new executable being created called frozen. Again, you can run it in the same format for yeah, same way. Just do frozen and then it will run. So this is the way in which you could actually change the name of your default exe. Because if you have a lot of other functions of sorry, a lot of other programs, you might end up overwriting the executables, right? So that's why you might want different programs to have different exes, just like you have in your softwares, right? Different softwares would have different exe names. That's how you change the name of a exe.
Excuse me, sir.
Is this clear, guys? How do you change the name and what's the default exe?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, someone had a question.
Yes, sir. It's regarding the linking thing actually.
Mhm.
Sir, if we have a program that is only one file, then what will be the job of the linker?
Nothing.
Okay.
If you have not called a header file function, if you have nothing in your, actually it's a meaningless program, but still there will be no linking happening because you don't need linking na, for that case.
So, but header, like including the header file is the part of the pre-processing and the compiling. Then,
Yeah.
so it's not the job of the linker, right?
But then if you have called a header function inside your program, right, which is part of the header, the code for that function has to be linked to your program. Na? How would that linking happen? That would not be done by the preprocessor, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, so guys, just remember this. This is the syntax in which you could change your. This is how you could change your default name of your exe. Okay, so one more point. So when I did GCC and then when I created the exe, yeah, when I did this, so I got the exe and I just can I just can simply run the exe and get my output. I didn't do all those steps that were required to get to this exe manually, right? Did you see me invoking the preprocessor? Did you see me invoking the assembler? Did you see me invoking the linker? No, right? I'll come to the colors here. So you didn't see me doing all the smaller steps that leads to a program executable getting created. So why didn't I do those? Is because GCC will do all those steps. GCC will take care of those steps. GCC will also invoke the. It's something like you could say. GCC has a compiler as well. It has a preprocessor and it invokes all of them. GCC is like this master software, right, which will call all the steps individually in that sequence and then create your exe. That's why I didn't have to call them manually, but I can always choose to do that by invoking the just like I did with the preprocessor, right, CPP. So similarly I could invoke the similarly there for linker I could say LD stands for linker. I could as well invoke all the steps manually, but then GCC is doing that for me. It is invoking the compiler, the preprocessor, the assembler, the linker. When does the loader get invoked? When I say .frozen, when I want to execute and press enter, then this is when the loader loads it and then runs the program. Is this point clear?
Sir, can you explain what the AOut thing is again?
Yeah, so when I compiled my program, how did I compile GCC, right? And then I said frozen.c. So in this case, an exe needs to be created, right? After the compilation process. So what is that exe? That name of the exe is .\a. That's the default exe name.
Okay.
And why is it in green color is because this is what Linux does for you. All these other files are non-executable files. Na? Frozen.c.i.o. You can't execute these files, but you can execute frozen. You can execute ./a.out. That's why it puts them in green color, just to let the user know that these are exe files.
So basically, if we double click on it,
not double click in the terminal, you can double click, right? You have to invoke it and enter. Yeah.
So why is frozen written in green color?
I just explained that because it's an exe file. It is different from the other files.
I mean, there is no exe, right?
Yes, that's what it is. So in Linux, you don't have to say it. You have to call it an exe. So if I just say, I don't want to go into Linux today, but yeah. So if you see this, right, this is the details of that file. And if you see, there is an X there is an X here. If you see this, right, the first, just see these first lines here. So there is an X here. And if I see, let's say frozen.c, let's see this file now. See, there is no X here. So X means this file is executable file. That means you can execute it. So you don't need a .ext explicitly. By just looking at the information that is stored in the file, so it's just like a Linux way of saying, okay, it's an exe file. So that's why there is an X here. So that's why you don't have to keep the exe as a part of the file name. And that's why when someone asks me in the morning, right, why doesn't Linux use a file extension? That's the reason. Now I have not given it a .exe extension, but by just looking at the info of the file, so these are the file infos actually, which the OS stores for you. I can see if it is an executable file or not. Since it is an executable file, by just seeing the X, so I can execute the file. And that's why it is in green.
And sir,
So what?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
you speak.
okay, the preprocessor lists out all the functions in the header, and compiler then goes to that location and converts it into machine code.
Good, you got it.
I just have a doubt that then what is the use of linker if we just write a single code? Because
Yeah, I have already addressed that. So if you write a single code without any external functions, there you don't need the linker there, because everything is self-sustained. All the code that you have written is part of the simple file. So why do you need the linker there? You don't need it.
Okay.
So while changing the name of the executable file, it creates a copy of a.out.
No,
Or
it does not. It does not.
but sir, it's there in the ls. I can see it in the directory.
Okay. Chill. So let me just remove it. Do you see an a.out? No, right?
So you have removed it.
I know. This is the first part of the trick to it. So do you see anything here? No, right? So let me just compile. Now, do you see any a.out?
No, sir.
Yeah. So your question is answered, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that was there because I didn't remove it from the last compilation. That's why. Okay, good. I think we are clear here. Okay, so what more, Lar? What else do you have on our program? Let's see. I have explained main. I have explained, yeah. I think, yeah. So printf, I have explained at length what is printf, and this is the thing. I mean, this is the line that you write inside printf that you want to get printed. And then what is the use of the semicolon? You have to put a semicolon at the end of every line. Why? Because if I don't put the semicolon, right, and if I just say, if I write one more printf here and one more printf here, so when the compiler starts compiling, or whenever your execution starts executing, it has to say, okay, this is the end of the, when you write a paragraph, right, or whenever you write a book, assume there is no full stop. Can you read the book? Can you read the thing that is there on the page?
No, sir.
Yeah, so that's the use of a semicolon. That is a clear way of saying, okay, this is the end of the line here, and then now go to the next line, and now go to the next line. This helps in the compilation as well as the execution. So that's why this is called a delimiter. This is called a delimiter. Delimiter is like the way to say where your program line ends. And if you don't give a semicolon, you will get a error saying you have missed a semicolon. So every program line has to end with a semicolon, just like every line in a sentence has to end with a full stop.
Sir, what if we write the whole program in a single line? Then
that's fine. Until and unless you have the semicolon in between.
Still, we have to add the semicolon.
Yeah, obviously. Okay. You can write an entire book in one big line, right, with full stops. Who is stopping you from doing that? Yeah, backslash n is just a, I mean, it's just like you could say it is just it's a command to the terminal to skip lines. Let me put
escape sequence.
Yeah. No, let me not use that word because people don't know it yet. So let me just say, I have put a lot of backslash n's now. So if I now run my code using the default exe name, you see I have given a lot of spaces here, right? So all these new lines will be created. So these are these things that you have used inside the printf backslash, and there would be other backslash t. So this is just like formatting for formats. You could say it helps you in formatting your output. So I have put a lot of empty lines and then I printed it. So each of these backslash and puts an empty line in the output.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So is it essential to indent this print statement like the way we've done here?
No, it's not. It's not. It's essential for if you want to understand your output or if you want to make it look good. But nothing changes from the programming compilation perspective.
So the indentation holds no relevance in C++?
It holds relevance to the person who is looking at your output or who is.
Okay, but the compiler doesn't consider anything like that.
No, it does not. It's not necessary. If I don't put a backslash, then who is stopping me?
Sir, what is indentation?
What is the English meaning of indentation? Tell me. Indentation is when you are writing some lines, right, and then you format them properly in a certain way, right? For example, when you write a paragraph, right, you leave a space, you leave a line after every paragraph, right? That's called indentation.
Okay.
So in this case, if I had a lot of, if I have to write other lines as well as the output of my program, then I have to put a backslash n at the end of every line, right?
So I wasn't talking about the backslash n statement. I was talking about the print statement in whole that we have intended a little further from the margin.
Oh no, I read that. Yeah, you can put it anywhere, man. It doesn't matter. See, whenever you do the compilation, right, all the spaces that you have put in your program, all these spaces, they're just removed. There's no spaces in your compile. Oh, there is no spaces in the profile that your compiler looks at. It will remove everything. So whatever number of spaces, number of lines that you add here, it doesn't matter to the compiler.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so let me see if we are left with anything else.
Sir, all the programming languages are case sensitive?
Yes, they are case sensitive. I mean, you have to write printf in certain way only, na. It cannot write printf in capitals. It will not work. Not all are case sensitive. I don't know. Maybe there are some languages, scripting languages, maybe which are not that case sensitive. Yeah. But yeah, now I will come to one important distinction here. So now you see this in green, right? You see the void as in green. This particular word called void is in green. If I write int, that again comes in green. But let's say if I write integer, that is not in green. Why is it so?
It's a variable type.
No, it's not a. It's yeah.
Sir, it's a basically a data type. That's why.
It's a keyword. Yeah, it's a keyword. Data type. That's what key. It's a keyword. That's what the word I was looking for. That what does keyword stands for is keywords are the elements which make up your language. For example, int is a keyword, right? Int is a keyword which is an element of your language. What is an element? What do you mean by element? So so you have a periodic table, right? So if you pick up any compound, and then you can divide that compound into these basic elements, right? You can take up, okay, this compound is formed of this much of this element, that much of this element. Similarly, if you have a program, think of the program as the compound. Now you could design that program, the compound, using these basic elements, and these elements are the language keywords. For example, int is a keyword. Later on in your when we'll be doing more programming, then you will see something called if. Then there will be something called else. So these are all the keywords. These are all the elements of the language which helps you write programs, which helps you write logic. Without this keyword, there's no existence of a programming language. Is this point clear? That's why whenever you type in a keyword in your editor, that will be highlighted in a certain in a different color in most of the So these are all keywords. These are the elements. Think of a program as a compound. These are the things that go towards creating your compound. That is towards creating your program. You have to weave. You have to weave your logic using these elements, using these keywords. Is this clear, guys?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir.
So I think I'm done with today's lecture. Yeah, I've explained what it is, compiling, linking using GCC, GCC pun.c, the GCC compiler. Again, just remember the GCC is just not, it just does not does the compiling for you. Whenever you say GCC, it will invoke the other smaller steps as well. There is a compiler also. So GCC is not just the compiler, it will also call the loader, sorry, it will also call the linker, then it will also call the preprocessor, and it will also call the compiler. Main function is mandatory, main is special, main is, yeah. Okay, I think we can go into, yeah, I think that's it for today. I mean, I have explained most of the things here actually. Then later, other things you can read it from the slide that will be shared later. It's not that difficult. You just read the lines. That's it. So yeah, last 10 minutes, guys, ask me questions now. So how was how you got today's lecture, right?
Yes.
The basic syntax of basic anatomy of the, for the people who were saying slow and fast and who didn't understand. I'm asking those people. How was it?
It was fine today.
Yes, sir. It was fine.
Sir, it was pretty interesting.
Okay, good. Nice. So yeah, now questions. Last 10 minutes. Any questions?
So my doubt was regarding the compilation process itself.
Yeah.
See, I write two functions in my function A, and these are functions I define, and I write it in one single file.
Yes.
So I have total three functions: A, B, and main.
Yeah.
Main I only call A. So will the compiler compile B also, or
No.
will it just compile A?
If your compiler is a smart compiler, it won't. If it's a dumb compiler, it will compile the other function also which you have not called.
Also, sir, they include preprocessor statement. Only just paste the file, right? Just takes the file stdio.h and then it pastes it in the C program.
Correct, you got it. But it just does not paste the file; it pastes the